and this is our greeting video for the Aim for Truth prayer team. And we had some thoughts to share and some questions that have come along that we wanted to discuss and try to create some type of cohesive presentation around how we perceive that the team could work. One possible idea. We're welcome to all the ideas. We're welcome to all the comments. And perhaps we should just jump right into some of the conflict comments that have come along. And that is, one of them was that the some of the topics or some of the discussion in the flyer that went out was too partisan. And I'm thankful for that comment and the opportunity to now discuss it. So from my standpoint, and I think from yours as well, the very last thing that I want to do is have some kind of discussion that seems Republican or Democrat, which is the context of partisan, the one side or the other. My viewpoint is one that's a divide and conquer technique that has been fostered on the country to be conservative or liberal. I actually think that whole discussion is fake. It's not real. And the real discussion is it according to the rule of law or is it according to the rule of tyranny? And inside that discussion, I think anybody that considers himself liberal, or anyone that considers them conservative, if they were to sit down and actually have a discussion based on that premise, that the distinguishing points are rule of law, rule of tyranny, they would find that they have a lot more in common than they think they do. And the conservative, liberal, fake division, it's what I see it as, a fake division. It's not really real. I mean, there might be some real issues inside there of disagreement. That's okay, but still, if you focus on the rule of law, right, and the whole focus of what the Constitution was supposed to do, which was protect the individual's rights, then that kind of boils everything down, and all the other peripheral discussions dissipate. They're shown for being unreal or non-real. So I don't know if you have any more input on that one specific distinguishing comment that the newsletter seemed too partisan. If there wasn't any more specifics from that, I would really appreciate if there was any specific discussion somebody would like to share on that issue, if they have any other thoughts on that. Again, the last thing that I want to do is produce something that is partisan or inside the context dynamic of, is it Republican or is it Democrat? Because I can tell you, from the spiritual world's perspective, and that's the whole concept of praying, I think we have that in common, that we're not praying to ourselves specifically, but praying to our guardians in the light, that they are neither Democrat nor Republican.
Well, if you go to the words of our founding fathers, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is not conservative, and that is not liberal. That's universal.
Yes, right. And so you go to that document in the Constitution for the United States of America, which is the contract between the individuals of each state contracting together to create a centralized government. And so say you were in Pennsylvania and I'm in Michigan, not at that time, but Pennsylvania and New York. We'll take those two because they were there. That we contracted together, me from New York, you from Pennsylvania, to create a offspring of the contract called the United States government. And so the United States government is the offspring and not the owner of, and does not have jurisdiction over. Right? It's kind of like if your children own the marriage.
The government is the servant of the people.
Child.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Contracts have children.
Okay.
You know, they're fruits of the contract. And so, and yes, they're supposed to be servants, but if you think about it in a child-parent relationship, they're to be nurtured and brought up. So the child, very misbehaving child, thinks it owns the states and the people. Okay, so back to Aim for Truth prayer team focus. Hopefully that clarifies our position on whether we're Democrats or Republicans. It's neither, is I would not be a Democrat, I would not be a Republican. And hopefully that is clear here, and the future flyers that come forward have that clarity as well. And if they don't, my request is that with specificity, you write back and say, this seems partisan from this standpoint. So this way we can help tune it. That word tuning is really for me, the most critical issue. The whole reason for joining a team, right, is to get into sync and into tunement with one another. So this way, what we're producing has a powerful force to it. If we're out of tune, and we're going to go into tuning discussions here, just so we can kind of amplify. We used the word standing wave, and we used the word sympathetic resonance in some of our discussions. And so, what is behind that, and why do we want to focus on that, is hopefully part of the discussion that we can have today, and provide some clarity on that. To mold it and shape it, how to come into resonance with one another in the best way possible. We just got done with rediscussing the whole partisanship issue, be it left or right, conservative, Democrat. We're like it's right in the middle of that, and where does the responsibility lie for some of these things? And so we can continue on. Act like the camera's not on. Okay. And it's this way you're refraining from talking, and we'll go back to right where you were at. So you were, Nick, you were asking the question, who is responsible for all of this? Because Leslie, were talking about the inequity in our society, where we have gone far to the left, and we are giving, instead of having, as you would say in the Kabbalah and in other traditions, that there's a middle pillar. This is all sacred geometry as well. And then you have a left pillar and a right pillar. And the middle pillar is there to balance the right and the left. And it's not to get rid of them. I mean, you can't cut off the right or cut off the left, because then you would just fall over.
We're bilateral beings.
Oh, they're there for a reason.
Yeah, they're there for a reason.
I mean, without them, you can't balance anyway.
So, how did you put it? The one side is unconditional love, and you kind of give it unconditional giving, that we've given, like, we send foreign aid to people that consider us our dead enemies.
Okay, if we're looking at it in terms of Kabbalah, the pillar on the right is the pillar of severity, the pillar of Boaz. And this is the pillar that deals with economy, efficiency, justice, judgment, dividing good from evil. It's the pillar of discipline. It's the pillar of form. And if you're looking at the left side, Gedula, or what we call the pillar, we have the pillar of mercy, which is also Yakim. This is unconditional love. This is the outflowing of limitless substance, both spiritual and physical, from which we draw all things needful and for which we have gratitude. Everything that is unconditional and flowing and limitless comes from this side. And so we can't really eliminate the idea that we have a right side and a left side, that we sometimes need to be conservative and we sometimes need to be liberal, even in disciplining ourselves or disciplining our children. There are times when we have to be very strict with ourselves and bring ourselves into form, and there are times when we have to be generous, and we have to release, and we have to expand, and we have to go to new boundaries. And in between is the middle pillar, where everything is centered, where everything is balanced. And our society has gone too far in the direction of generosity. It's mistaken generosity, it's misled generosity, it's fooled generosity. It's giving and giving and giving without the requirement to be personally responsible, to live up to the dictates of the law, to come into the United States as a legal citizen, to do my part in maintaining my own health, before I expect public agencies or tax dollars to pay for my lack of personal wisdom. And so the middle pillars is the fulcrum where we bring both of these into balance. And so I think that society as a whole just needs to have more impetus from the right side, the side of justice, the side of law, the side of judgment, to bring everything back to center. Which is not to say that these two sides should be quarreling with each other, because we wouldn't want to have our right arm quarreling with our left arm. With this arm, we hold our child and nurse our child. With this hand, we say no. Here we're holding and nurturing and loving our child, giving our milk, giving our sustenance. With this arm, we say, sit down and do your schoolwork. You can go out to play when you finish reading your book. These arms work in synchrony and in unity with each other. But with all the impetus to the left, well, we have to feed the whole world. We have to give our money to the whole world. We have to let anybody and everybody in our country. You can't be like that. A cell, a human cell, has a semi-permeable membrane, right? The cell wants to take in only the healthy elements. If the cell lets down its wall and lets anything in, the cell dies. So the side of justice, the rule of law, is that semi-permeable membrane. This is the ring past naught. You only get through the ring if you merit it, if you reach the standard, if you accord, if you resonate with the law. And we're way over to this side, way over to this side, which is not to say that this is wrong. There's just too much of it. And it has to be counterbalanced with, you know what, guys, you're committing treason. You're emptying taxpayers' pockets to help other people in the world, and you have children starving and children being murdered and people getting killed with drugs right inside your own border, right inside your own cell tissue, right inside your own body. Make yourself healthy first. Preserve your integrity. And on that foundation, with your national sovereignty intact, then you interact with others of distinct character, distinct nature. And we've been fooled by this banner of we have to love everybody, we have to be diverse with everybody, we have to allow everything. We're just swamping our shit.
I mean, what's wrong about to love everyone?
That is correct.
You could love everyone, and you could be like a firm with your new law or some laws you put there, you know.
We should love everyone.
I mean,
but there have to be healthy boundaries.
I don't see anything about that. I mean, like a wrong.
Okay, Nikki, there's a law that you have a relationship with your wife, right? Can you have that relationship with everybody? Our society is like that right now.
I could have a relationship with everybody, but be different than a relationship with my wife.
Because there's a law that regulates how you interact with Vicky as opposed to me. There's a law that governs that interaction. So there's a boundary, there's a healthy boundary that is set. Yes, we should love everyone, but everyone...
I mean, love is not like a one-side love. You could love one because I choose my wife or because my brother. Everyone have a different love there.
And there's a law and a description and a rule and a
matter.
boundary about how love flows, about how it's conducted. For the sake of health, to have a healthy society. I mean, isn't that what the Ten Commandments are? Isn't that what the Gospel on the Mount is? It's a prescription for health. If your love flows from within outward along these lawful channels, then you individually will prosper and your society will prosper. Break the tablets, break the law, then you have a poisoning.
What you're talking about law, government law, or universal law, or spiritual law? What kind of law are you talking about now?
Well, it's not the Constitution of the United States.
You're talking about the United States.
Okay,
law.
but is not the Constitution of the United States an outgrowth of universal spiritual law as it is expressed in our Old Testament and our New Testament?
Well, you mean an attempt?
An attempt.
Yeah, certainly,
An attempt at
certainly
that,
not
and
perfect,
certainly
but
not perfect.
And again, it's not of, it's for, and there's a,
We need to make that distinction.
Yeah.
We need to make
So I
that
tell you
distinction.
something. You say a lot of people come to this country and we give them without even asking, blah blah blah, we're out. But you know who's causing all this problem?
Mhm.
Like, let's go say U.S. they went to to Iraq. They have a war for 10 years.
I know.
Destroy everybody's life.
Yes.
Yes.
They're Christian over there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have nobody to support them or something. I said, okay, bring me like a 65,000, 100,000. I bring them to USA and spread them here.
So you're saying
They don't want to come over here. They were living nice over there, but they destroyed their life over there.
yes,
And they have to come. When you
Yes.
do something,
right,
you have to help with it.
Right.
You the problem, you have to
yes.
put
And
your hand out.
I have children sitting
Same
in
thing
front.
they did in Syria.
Yes.
Yes.
And they started putting
Iran,
pressure
Yemen,
on,
everywhere.
on France, England, Scotch, blah, blah, blah. You have
Yes.
to take some people from it. Which in my country, I have a 2 million, and my country is 4.
Hmm.
So, I mean,
Well,
when you cause a problem for someone,
Then you have to take
you have
care
to
of it.
have there, you like it or not.
yeah, so then you have to go beyond, and the next step beyond is what was the impulse that created the problem in the first place? And some would say the impulse for creating the problem is actually to produce the very thing that you're talking about. It's all true what you're saying. How do we go from where we're at, which is we destroyed, when we say we're including ourselves there, but the mechanizations of what I would call psychopaths that run our CIA and our intelligence community, along with many in what we call our deep state in the government, purposefully created these scenarios to cause that havoc. So it's problem, reaction, solution. So it's not like it didn't just happen on its own. Like, oh, we made a mistake and we blew up your country. No, it was intentionally blown up to create the problem that we have of these people. What are you gonna do? It's like, what are you gonna do with them? It's like a lot of them have a very dismal view of the United States, and they don't look and see just the United States government. It's the entire United States. It's all of us that live here. They look at us and they say we're murderers because we went there and we destroyed the country. Now, that's the place that we're at. Can you just simply say to this group of people who want to come here and kill us, let's say they don't have a reason? I mean, Ron Paul, who was a Republican, but he's more libertarian, he's totally libertarian, would say, he called it blowback, right? There was blowback from these countries,
Yes.
right? It's exactly what you're saying. That's what the
So nobody want to come here and kill us. If they could, they did it a long time ago. Nobody want to come here. We're doing a lot of damage than anybody else.
Oh, well, there's no question about it.
We're doing the damage more than anybody else.
I'm just saying, if I were there, so let's just say the Chinese invaded our country, right? This would be the same, and killed millions of people. Do you think I wouldn't want to go to China and wiped out my whole family? Think I wouldn't have an opportunity to want to go to China and blow parts of China? Of course it would.
You know, the problem is like the war is two people, they know each other. Like the big people, they do the war. They know each other. And they force us, the people who don't know each other, to fight each other.
Yeah.
And after the war done, they're still friends with each other, doing
Yeah.
business.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So why I have to go, to China to kill my family, don't kill the Chinese people? They have no reason.
I'm not-
I'm saying,
I'm not
they
saying-
have no reason to kill them because they're not involved in that. They're forced to.
I understand.
Like here, if somebody say, okay, I'm gonna draft, and you don't go for a draft, be in jail.
Exactly.
But I don't want to.
Okay.
We have no
so
freedom for it.
if we stay at this level, right, and don't go to the next level, because that's what the whole concept of the inquiry is about, is to going beyond the three-dimensional time-space and the difficulty that we have, because we have problems that I don't think can be solved from a three-dimensional perspective. How do you solve that we blew up that country right now? How do you solve it? By letting all those people come here? How do you solve it? It's not. Is it solvable on that level? I pretend it's not solvable on a three-dimensional level, and that's the whole intention of the query. That's the whole intention for me of the prayer, regardless if anybody else is praying with me or not. The query is there for me to go in alignment with the spiritual world and bring heaven to earth, like the Lord's Prayer. Like the whole mechanism, our Father who art in heaven, holy is your name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth. And so that on earth mechanism, I see that as us. I see that as me. I'm that flow of how heaven comes to earth. And that's what I think is the solution to this. Because how are we here going to affect these demented individuals that did exactly what you said? How are we going to affect that, right?
Mhm.
And there, lots of different words that we can use. We can use anthroposophical words and talk about arma and lucid version involvement, or we can call them demonically possessed, or psychotic, right? And all those are probably true at the same time. So how are we going to impact that over there? We can't see them, touch them. We don't speak to them. We can't rationalize with them. So how are we going to affect them? And what I'm saying is the way I intend to do it, and Leslie and I have discussed this a lot. That's the reason why we produce some of the things that we have. So this on the quantum level with prayer, right, to affect the deal. Well, it's outside of time and space, right? It's not in a three-dimensional time space. Okay, so the spiritual realm and us, we are. If you have the concept that we are spirits in a physical body, right? We are outside of time and space. Even right now, sitting in a physical body, we exist outside of time and space. And so when I can go into resonance or sympathetic resonance with the spiritual forces, like the Archangel Michael, in my case, it's a specific view that I have, to go into resonance with the Archangel Michael and bring his impulse to earth. And there's a step process to get there. I have to clear my temple in order for that resonation, in order for the Archangel Michael to want to come close to my atmosphere. He's got to, and we say he, but it is a misgiving. There's no male and female in the spiritual realm. We do. It's a being, yes. So, but we do say he. So when I clarify, it's just an easier way to say.
You have to see your intention, what you could do.
Exactly. In what in like it.
Yes, Aquarius.
If you don't see your intention, you don't involve with it, because
Exactly.
you are a free human being on earth. There is no pressure from the spiritual world on you. How you want to act. You want to act evil or want to act good. That's up to you.
Yes.
If you act evil, you add the evil in this world. If you want to act like a really praying and spiritual person, then you have some aid coming to you to direct you and guide you. So prayer is powerful. I mean, what you said earlier, you have to be cleansing yourself and be clean inside,
Yes.
heart and mind.
Yeah. So it's exactly
The
so,
purity could bring a lot.
right. And so I have it like in 3 steps. Just want to come to me, then in me, then through me. Right. So there's no Archangel Michael is not going to come near if
He is near, but we're not poking him.
well,
We're not what?
like you're saying,
Poking him.
he's not going to come and spend any time with you if you're
He's not,
doing
unless you're
evil,
poking.
right? He's just not going to like the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's always here, but
Yeah.
he's waiting
He's
for
always-
us
yeah.
to
There's
ask.
no right. There's not an
He's
interaction.
always
There's no
right here, right here.
permeation of
Yeah.
his energy
Let's
field.
give my
with
Archangel
mine.
Michael a hug. We hug you, Archangel
So
Michael.
Yeah.
what I heard is it's archangels and they arc between, right? So if 2 or 3 are gathered, and then so there's an archangel arcing between the angels. So that's how it kind of describes it. So when there's 2 or 3, that's why the importance of a team. Right? If we can get clarity between us to any degree, we may not be completely clear in an agreement, but whatever we're in agreement, like when I'll show the video again on that standing wave. The closer he gets to the resonant frequency of that length, the more coherent the wave is. Now, if we're not exactly on it, there's still coherence. There's still something there to work with. There's still an amplification. So the more work that we do to become coherent together, like we're doing, trying to see where we're resonating. So again, the Archangel Michael wanting to come, right? Because I've done the work that you're talking about to cleanse and to have the intentions that he would like to experience or be a part of. And then so now I have that light in me, and then that light can now connect to somebody else who's doing the same work, maybe not the same way, but the same work, right? Because you study the Kabbalah, I don't study the Kabbalah, so I don't. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you say that I understand already because they're universal in principle, but the specific methodology I'm not familiar with. I do something else, but we've shared, and you see the similarity between what you do and what that is, and you can correlate it. So the concept is we're individually doing our own work. So this way, the Archangel Michael, and this is my view. Somebody else might not think about the Archangel Michael. I don't know, but we're just sharing. And so, but this is the possibility. We all go into resonance with the same type of query that we've posted. We can go over again, or whatever the words are. And it's not easy to get those words crafted in a way that everybody would agree with them. But there's real.
And you're not going to be able to. So, I think
Well, no,
it's
you
fair
can.
to know.
It's possible.
I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying if you have somebody who comes on and hears about it, they might not like it for one reason or
And
another.
that's true.
And so that shouldn't be something that would hold you back.
Well, so it would. So for me, it would be on a case by case basis. Like, what is it they're disagreeing with?
If they
You know?
should, if they would put a comment. And
Yes,
no.
exactly. Right. So
And
that's-
then you could do a case by case.
Yeah. Well.
But you might just lose somebody just in the, just tuning in and watching and going, yeah.
Well, so it kind of goes to so Gideon is told to go off and fight the battle, and he gets 32,000 men to start with. And then the first thing that happens is they pare it down from 32 to 10,000 by the Lord saying, anybody that's afraid, let them go home. Because the fear can't participate with, if I'm having a state of fear, is the Archangel Michael going to spend a lot of time participating with me?
You need
Not
courage.
so much. Yeah, because I'm dominated by fear.
They're not ready.
Exactly.
They're not ready.
So all the fearful ones were first cut. And then they went down to the stream, right? And he says, okay, everybody that laps it up like a dog and isn't staying on guard, right? Isn't consciously aware of their surroundings. Isn't, the hand is on, the one hand is on the hilt of the sword, and they're drinking water like this because they're looking around. So they're thinking, they're feeling, and they're willing is all engaged, right? They know they're ready to go to battle, and they're thinking about it, and they have their hand on their hilt. So it's all in alignment. Thinking, feeling, and willing are engaged and active, and they're aware of what they've been called to do. So they end up with 300, and they're going to go to battle with I forget what it is, like 100,000 or something like that, or 30,000. I forget what the exact number was. The odds
It was
weren't
like
good.
100,000.
It wasn't good odds.
Yeah,
Right.
wasn't good at it.
So you got 300 guys. It says, okay, here's what you need. You need a lamp that you're going to stick in this pitcher or earthen vessel, and a horn. Okay, off you go. So, and that's what they did, right? Of course, it's all in sound and light. And Leslie and I were discussing and looking at videos on the power of sound and light and what experience. And again, in the beginning, Elohim formed the earth by using sound. When it's a word, however it came out. I'm not sure I can qualify how that vibration or energy pattern, but it was a word. He spoke, and something was formed. And so, and the speaking is in resonance. So the light they had within them already, that's what I'm saying, is the Archangel Michael. So the more I can do to cleanse my field, so this way that fire can be here, and I can be at peace and one with it, then that allows me now to be at peace and one with somebody else, however they're doing it, right? To cohere with them and to line up. And so the query is one manifestation of creating a speaking, like in the quantum field or in the whole energetic field.
I want to back us up. Can I back us up just very briefly?
First of all, I just want to say that, Nikki, I don't think that what you and I were saying were different. They're like two sides of the same coin. You're absolutely right, and I absolutely agree with you. And they're two facets of the same problem. The second point I wanted to address is when you said that what's going on in the public discussion is not rational. That is so absolutely true. There can be no appeal to reason. So when we can't move in 3 dimensions, we have to go up. We have to go up the scale of dimensionality to find the solution to the problem. And I just wanted to say also, for the sake of the listening audience, that I am also a student of anthroposophy. 10 years, which is not very long to study anthroposophy, but it's a beginning, not just Kabbalah. And that it's that one thing that I've really enjoyed exploring with Paul through all of this is the dimensionality of light and sound, and how we can focus the use of spiritual light and sound from a higher dimension to accomplish what is so difficult to accomplish by any reasoned public discussion. You know, and I think then we were using almost synonymously for query the word intention. Is how close, that one question would be, Paul, how close are the words intention and query? How close are they in meaning, number one? And number two, my second question would be, because Vicky asked, explain the quantum field. So then, is quantum field operative in 0 point energy, the idea that the quantum field is everywhere and nowhere, that it's all entirely 0 point energy? And could you address those two questions?
There is
Since
no,
you're the one.
there is no zero energy. Everything energy.
Yeah, it's just a term, 0 point. 0 point being actually, I mean.
And this is, I said zero. There is no zero. Everything energy, I say.
Yes.
Everything energy.
Yes. But the difference between, so in the spiritual realm, there's no frequency. It's just here on this 3-dimensional time frame. You have time. Right? You have time and distance. Right? So frequencies, like if you think of a buoy in the ocean going up and down, and then you map the buoy going up and down over time, it looks like what we call a sine wave. It goes up and down. It's called the sine wave. You don't have that in the spiritual realm. You don't have time. Right?
No, you don't have time. No.
Right.
Time
So
here, no.
There's no time.
Here don't have a time.
Yes. And so, so when Christ, the centurion comes and says, I have a boy that's sick, you know, you don't need to come and see him. Just send the word, right? And he'll be healed. And then he goes back to the centurion, or maybe not the centurion, but then another, mixing and matching stories, but, so we can correct it if they want. So when he gets back and he finds out the boy is healed at the very instant or hour
On the
of
same
time.
time.
Right.
That's
So
yes.
there was no time delay. There wasn't something that had to be sent. That's what's called scalar, a scalar wave. It's outside of time and space. It doesn't. It's not bounded by the laws of time and space. And so that's one way to think of. That is what 0 point is talking about. It's the center of the circle, right? Literally, 0 point of the circle is where the term 0 point comes from, 0 point energies, and the qualities of the energy that are at the circle. And so some people talk about that as a transcendental gateway, you know, between time and space. So you go anywhere instantly at any time. There's no time at the 0 point. So I don't know if that helps.
Of course it does.
I don't know if my explanation helps. Right, that's what something to do. And then I don't really know how to distinguish, you know, scalar from quantum. So it would seem to be very similar.
Well, it was interesting. That's why I got excited today when we were listening to Tellinger, because he was talking about how particle science is, I don't want to say not truth, but it's a half truth, and that we can't really talk about atoms. An atom is basically a toroidal resonance field. It's not, there's nothing solid about it. It's a toroidal resonance field. And so then,
Yeah, so it gives you the background of how that could work. So people would say, well, was Jesus doing it? We're not supposed to understand how he did it because he's God and we're not here. So I think that if it's being demonstrated to us, that we are supposed to understand what the spiritual forces are behind it and the mechanism of how that happens. And so when you get into quantum and 0 point concepts, right, that begins to try to explain that an energy pulse went out of him, right, not in a frequency domain. It wasn't like a radio wave that has a frequency to it and propagated through the air to get to the child. It was a scalar wave that literally went in and out. I mean, it's not a really good way of looking at it. In and out of time and space, so it was here and there at the same time, though. And that's what, that's, how does it do that? Well, if everything is this toroidal energy field, right, it already has its interconnection to that field, and it's all interconnected.
in the same way that an electron doesn't move along a trajectory, it's just a probability that wave of energy that we call an electron will be identifiable at any given point in space and time. It's just a probability.
Right. So if we kind of connect that to what we were talking about, and am I sharing my screen? If I share my screen, there was a question on my screen. I was recording that over there, and I put this.
So we're trying to think about just how to create this coherence without, as you say, like creating a definition that causes people to fall off the edge and say, I can't resonate with that.
I mean,
Well-
some people, they don't, a different level, or they don't have an open mind or something.
Or it
Yeah, I'm
can,
not
it
gonna
can
be
be
there.
that, you're speaking a high language right now. So a lot of people would have to have
More
a
understanding.
recognition of all those terms and those ideologies before they could, piece them together. I mean, they might have to sit with the dictionary next to
I
I'm not
really,
trying
I
to
know,
be
no, I know.
at all.
And there's something, the other side of that is that people who, Nikki said when we first started talking about starting this prayer group, Nikki, leave it to Nikki. I mean, he just comes out, you just really have to pray with a sincere heart, honesty, to be pure, to be deep and powerful and sincere in your prayer is the very simple-minded way of looking at exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and yet for some people that concept would be difficult.
Yeah,
Simple, what are you talking about just with your heart?
I mean,
If you've never had your heart affected where you really felt a love that's transformed you in one way or another, then you can't know heart.
everything in life is one word, love. But love should be pure love. Like when they asked Christ, and he's doing miracles, I said, you could do a miracle like me and more what I do. But can you achieve the pure love? We love, we say we have a love in our heart, but I love my daughter more than my neighbor, and I love my daughter more than this person, and I love my wife more than, wow, you know what I'm saying? We always have like a love that goes with us, like a level 1, level 2, level, should be just one level. If you could get to love one level, then you could make miracle like Christ anytime like that.
Yes.
Jesus
But-
said,
That's what the work is about.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Have to work
that's
on that.
exactly it. We have to
You
work.
know, pure love. What's
We have
pure
to
love?
work on
It's huge, but it's not difficult at the same time. Huge to achieve it. Huge to achieve it, but it's simple.
when you get there.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus said, anybody who loves father, brother, mother, sister more than me is not worthy of me. And we were talking about releasing attachments. Isn't that 0-point energy?
Well, that's the point, though, right?
It's a practice. You have to practice on it.
It's easy, but it's simple, but it's complex at the same time.
I mean, what I could say is
it's
like
easy, but it's just like you said. we can have this discussion about quantum fields, and one set of people are going to say, what in the world are they talking about? And then you start talking about coherence and love in the heart and having a simple prayer, and another set of group is going to say,
What's that?
Because it's now experiential.
Has to be experienced.
Right? You can't just think about it.
Or say words.
So it's thinking, feeling, and willing, right? So they all have to go. I got to be able to feel it just like you were talking about it, and I have to think about it, right? In it. So the query is a way to think about it, and it does nothing if I don't feel it, right? It doesn't go anywhere. So what? So you're going to pray. You pray now. I know you do. Do you think before you pray? Yes. You think about what you're going to pray about. You have to.
Already I have the plan what I have to feel. I've been in practice.
I'm certain there's certain things that you come in prayer with, and there's different ways to pray. Like I said originally, some people pray, "Dear God, do this," because they have a list of things they want who they're calling God to do. Like maybe you think whoever you're calling God might have an idea about those things, and what if it doesn't line up with what you're asking for? It's like, well, I'm not sure how well that's considered, but a lot of people pray that way. I want God. So they look at it as something like somebody that they're going to ask for stuff from, right? Give me this, do this, do this. Does it work? Sometimes that works, right? I think sometimes that actually lines up what's going on and what we're calling the quantum field and the higher intentions. It lines up, and so it happens. And sometimes it doesn't.
You see,
like, a lot of times it doesn't.
God given everyone is bad people, good people, medium people. They give them everything. It's not like a holding anybody because you're not praying for me. I'm not gonna give you. You give everyone.
Yes.
The idea is, are we happy with ourselves? If I'm doing good or bad, it goes to me. If I'm happy with what I'm doing, I'm asking, that's great. But if I'm not, I'm asking for something, I'm doing something else. Whatever I get, I'm not going to be happy. He's not going to feel clean. You're not going to feel clean. I'm asking from one side, it's good, I need something, and I'm praying. And if all of a sudden I'm doing something else, I'm not clean there.
Well, to have
I'm looking for my own selfishness. Just for selfish thing, I'm asking to be good, and I don't get about other people. You know what I'm saying? So like really, that fear.
But I would say that's
It's
really
between love and the fear, the hair. If you could take that fear, that little hair out there, the fear out, everything fallen in good place, the right place.
But you have to take
everything had a fear. The fear is there. Every situation, everything you do. Even if you want to do business, if you want to, whatever you want to do, they have a fear. I can. Those, what the problem we have,
Yes. Well, again, with the Gideon story, and the same with the quantum or the Corey work, if there's any doubt or fear mixed in with the projection of what is supposed to go out, it gets confused, right? And it dissipates, right? But if it's coherent and it's created daily, like at the same time, we begin to create what's called a standing wave, because it has the same frequency and period, and it begins to take shape and form in the three-dimensional time space. And so now we have this coherent wave that's being produced. And no, somebody doesn't have to say it exactly the same way. It's, as you've said, it's the intention of the heart and the purity of the prayer.
And also the person's integrity if they're walking their talk.
Yes.
It's hard to be a pure vessel if you're not walking your talk.
Yes. So there's different ways to think about it. I've given one way to think about it in suggesting and trying to invite folks into understanding what that is, the different aspects of it. So it's a very structured thought, but what you said, without a feeling in the heart, this warmth that would come, this, you know, it's with joy, you know, and if I cannot produce the joy to go out and love, right? I mean, I don't know how you can have joy without love, or vice versa. Without that impression going out in creating with those, that intention, it doesn't have a force behind it to do it.
And then also willfully to command it. I mean, when Saint Germain teaches us about commanding from the I am presence within ourselves, we have to know that we do create with our words.
Yes.
And that we command it, and it is so. And so we have to also willfully.
So last thought, because it's getting late, and the video is getting very long, and that's basically this. The contract that we call the Constitution for the United States of America, it doesn't constitute. The Constitution of the United States means it's the Constitution of how the United States were created. No, the states were created, they formed the United States government by a Constitution, the Constitution. That's the contract. And so that word is really important, and I don't think I did a good job explaining it. But if folks in the different states that are on this team are in agreement that we want to have certain aspects, certain qualities of our United States government to work in adherence to that Constitution, which is a pretty doggone good document. It's not like complete, it's not whole, but it's a lot better than anybody else's has produced so far. And so if we want a government like that, and given your earlier words that it's been mutated, we have the right, as you were just saying, to speak that back into
Speak
existence.
it back into existence.
Because we have the authority to do that. We're members, we're citizens here in different states, and we own the Constitution. It's ours. The United States government doesn't own it. Doesn't even have jurisdiction over it. It's a whole other discussion that federal courts don't have jurisdiction over the United States contract. It'd be like your children, your child, having ownership of your marriage. This Kalia is the offspring of your marriage. She's the fruit of the contract, right? She doesn't own the contract. You own the contract. She's the child. We now have a government, United States government, that thinks it owns the contract. The states got together, contracted. You're from Pennsylvania, I'm from New York, you're from Virginia, you can be from New Hampshire. You look like
I'm from Massachusetts once upon a time when it wasn't crazy.
So we all got together and we decided, we wrote down a contract with each other and said, we called it the Constitution for the United States, and it created the United States central government. We did. We created it. So now the creature thinks it owns not only the contract, but you.
Frankenstein.
And me as well. And so that's the concept in the field. That's what's been crystallized, concretized, but that's what we see, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about states' rights and individual rights. Go read the 10th Amendment. It's brilliant. It's probably the foundation piece of the whole thing that no one talks about, but it's right there in that, and we won't go into it. But we have retained our rights, supposedly. So there's nobody looking after them anymore. So if we agree to re-invoke the contract, and that's what the query is about, is bounding what I consider the linchpin of the whole deal, which is the Department of Justice and federal prosecutors. And this would be another whole discussion that we have, that the federal prosecutors are actually the ones that are running the country, and have been for the last 30 or 40 years. And they run it based on the grand juries and the courts. They own the judges.
They own the judges.
Because they know all the judges, and they put the judges there in the first place, so they know all the dirty stuff.
They're supposed to be randomly chosen.
And so they own the judges and they own the grand juries. Grand juries is defined in the Constitution, but it's not a part of the government. So but they've taken over the grand jury, so now they can point that mechanism. And the silly saying is, you can indict a ham sandwich, and you can. You can indict basically anybody or anything at any time, and that's the control mechanism. So you don't get out of line because you can get indicted. So that's my thought concept. You may not agree with it. People watching the video may not agree, but that's the reason why I wrote the query for the Department of Justice specific. We can write one for a whole bunch of other things.
I mean, what you're talking about is it live in every country, in every company, in every society, in every some people gonna dominate on others, you know.
Yeah.
Some way, somehow.
And we have
And
been,
it's a kind of human nature that way, you know. I mean,
yes,
and that's how wherever you go, that's the way it be.
except we have this unique thing called this Constitution for the United States of America. We have this very unique document, a contract, that is not anywhere else on this planet, that was inspired by, you know, to be a lawyer back at that time for those folks, you know, you had to translate 5 books of the Bible from like Latin to, from Greek to Latin or something like
Yeah,
that.
what was involved in spirituality? Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
It
and they were
was.
very bright.
It
These
was.
guys were not stupid
Yeah.
people, right? They were
Yeah.
they're highly intellectual, and they had a spiritual basis to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they had both. And so then when they formulated that, they put checks and balances in, and then Madison wrote like these 15 items and said, well, if you do all these 15 things, you'll subvert the society. Well, we've got them all. And so, we can't go into any of that, but they understood it could be subverted. They did their best to build checks and balances into it. And I'm taking it to another whole level. And I'm saying that there's contracts, there's spiritual contracts. And we can take this contract and our association into the spiritual world and invoke it with the help of our spiritual guides in the hierarchy of Archangel Michael.
So then we have query, intention, invocation.
Yes. And so that query is one possible manifestation for a query that the group can take on for themselves. And we can go into resonance. We'll do another video just on the whole resonance thing because this one's getting very long. And to see that in resonance, it creates this field that's very large, and out of resonance creates nothing, basically. And so those 300 in Gideon were all like-minded. They were all the same feelings about what they were doing. They were all on the ball. They all had the lights in themselves and were ready to break themselves open, crack the earthen vessel, so their light can come out. And they were ready to make a sound, a pure tone together that could confuse the enemy. They didn't know where. The enemy got confused and fought themselves, killed each other, and the battle was won. And so that's the ease. That's the ease that can happen in that coherent field. And so I don't. I mean, these are my concepts that I'm bringing to the team. You digest them and form them and do what you would like with them. Parts of them, all of them, none of them. Okay. But to the degree we can, has another concept of how the team can go into resonance with itself consciously, not just really thinking about how we can do it, right? So thinking, feeling, and willing, lining up. Because like I said, I'm sure when you go to pray, you first think about what you're going to pray about, okay? And then you feel into it, right? And the part of speaking it, getting however you go into your meditative state, is the willing, right? You're actually focalizing your physical body as well as your mental emotional body and your spiritual body in one setting to bring all of that to the prayer. So I think that's how it works.
I mean, you could pray for a human being, and every human being on earth,
Absolutely.
because those the power too. Just when you could switch. Like when I pray for humanity, every human being on earth, to be filled with love, peace, and harmony in his life. So if you have this quality in a human being,
Yes,
everything will change.
there's no doubt. And so what I'm
You
suggesting,
need those things to be
Yeah.
in every human being.
Yeah.
Fill up with his love, peace, harmony, mind and heart. So when those one filled with those one, they're gonna be going straight.
yes,
And everything will change because even the running the government, they are a human being too.
exactly.
Even the judges, they are a human being too. And even the army, they are a human being. Every human being go to this level,
Yes,
everything can start being peace.
Which reminds me, because I also belong to another prayer group, Wings of Love, healing prayer circle inaugurated by Philip Burley of the Association for Internal Mastery. And he has like I think it's an 11 or 12 point prayer formula that begins in a very narrow, focused place, begins with God and myself, and then expands outward to reach the place where we are praying for every human being on the planet. And it might be interesting to look at that as a type of query, a type of formulated prayer, but it's like going back to the metaphor of the symphony orchestra. Each musician is playing from a score. So if you think of the score as being like the query or the invocation, most often, especially if you're playing classical music or some very strict formal type of music, you have to stay exactly on that score. But if you're doing jazz or improvisation, then the score becomes a structure that you work off of. You're playing the score, but with an individual variation or a surprise or a twist that allows for individual expression, but you're still following the same score. And these ideas are just coming to me on the foundation of this discussion, sparked with what Nikki was saying about how he prays for every human being on the planet. You can think of that as being kind of like a backdoor approach, because if you come in the back door and you're praying for every person, it doesn't matter if that person is some psychopathic judge or psychopathic CEO, or is just some psychopathic brainwashed person staring at the television set. You're praying for that person and lifting them out of their condition, sending them energy to turn around and go right and become one with God. So you can work it from many angles. But when he said that, it reminded me about that sort of semi-scripted prayer formula, which is set up like a query. But I think when I envision every person in their own home station praying that prayer, I'm sure there are individual improvisations. You know, people are going to feel more strongly about one prayer point than another on a given day, you know, either because of events in their own life or events in the public. So they're going to emphasize one point over another. So again, it's this balance of right and left, up and down, back and forth.
Sure.
How do we strike the chord that everybody can resonate?
I mean, even the person praying for those cause, you know, in life, have to check himself too, to keep going straight and clean. Because I'm praying and I change, you know, my thought, my thinking, I'm not clean or pure anymore. It will, it's like you watering down.
Yes, exactly. Dissipates.
We have to do, keep checking ourselves at the same time, the person praying, to keep like a full dose, you know.
Yeah, it's like repentance,
Yeah.
repentance, faith, gratitude, and determination. Every day, repentance, cleansing myself.
And
Faith, gratitude, determination, to stay the course.
and that's all completely a part of it. The intention of a query is more like, and I've used this. I don't think I did it in the first video, but it's more like, for a really good example, is like the Death Star in Star Wars. Right? You can have a general prayer that touches everyone like you're doing, but if you manage to hit a chord where these 8 beams that are coherent laser light in themselves, they're very coherent, very directed, and they merge together, you get this one very, very powerful beam that comes out that can take very large objects, seemingly indestructible objects, and move them aside.
And you've given us an example with this, you know, very brief query that is stated in the positive, in the present tense, focused and specific, centering on the Department of Justice, and that would be an example of what you're saying.
Yeah. And so, you know, it doesn't take. I mean, for me, I actually have to generate myself for a good 15 to 20 minutes before I actually have the query that I do that at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be very difficult for somebody that's west of us, and it's 3 o'clock in the West Coast. They have folks, but it's in the middle of the day in Europe, and it's in the evening over in Japan. So I don't know where everybody is. So certainly, if you can't do it at that time, it's not like it's something rigid. But if it was done in synchronicity, it adds to. But somebody said, "Well, I can't do it at that time because I'm doing all these other things." But when I am praying, I will go back. I consciously go back to that time to pray with you, and that's again scalar or quantum.
And it's will. I mean, the fact that they consciously know that they can't make that time, but I'm going to go back to that time and still
participate.
Yeah, that's, to me, it's intention.
Yes. The power of intention and the fact that we are beyond time and space. We can command it. So.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and we are all in different time zones.
Yeah.
We're not going to conquer that, so why not, be objective about it?
Yes.
Keep sending messages. Something you get a call. One day you get a call. You stop talking to it.
Anyways, I'm going to freeze it here or stop it here because it's a long one. And thank you for tuning in for the Aim for Truth prayer team discussion with Paul and
Leslie.
And Vic.
So we appreciate you taking the time and spending the time to pray with us. And I hope you'll continue to work at the resonance that we're trying to create.
And feel free to give us your opinions.
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Do the best.